This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, so now you can begin.
Okay. Shall I? Or we will wait for?
Yeah, you can start. I will be checking the chat if he gets it.
Yeah. Namaskar. And a very good evening to all the participants and honorable speakers. On behalf of AADYA Society, Institute for Management and Legal Studies, in collaboration with SADBA, Institute of Technology and Management, along with CCAOI, I'm Mitali Dwara, founder, secretary of AADYA. Welcome all of you to this online interactive stakeholder discussion on cybercrime and the existing regulatory landscape in India. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for gracing us with your presence at this significant event focused on cybercrime. Do note that this session is being live streamed and recorded. The objective of the discussion is to sensitize the legal community, student and community member of Assam on the types of new age cybercrime, the existing legal provision available to tackle them, including the redressal mechanism available, dwell on the lacuna in the existing regulatory process to tackle new age cybercrime, and deliberate how the law should be framed. Additionally, as the government is planning to overhaul the Information Technology Act 2000 and is drafting the Digital India Act, and the draft bill is expected to be released soon for public consultation. We will be collecting the inputs received during the discussion today and submit the same as the proceeding of the event to the government, decision makers, and other stakeholders. As we want it to be an interactive session, you are encouraged to share your views and queries in the chat. So in case of any questions, please use a prefix question. And for a comment, please use the prefix comment. During the open house section, we will try to take as many questions and comments as possible. Please feel free to raise your hand and we will ask you to speak. While we encourage you or actively participate and share your views during the session, however, please be respectful and considerate to each other in your views, even though your views are differ from each other. No abusive language, personal attack will be tolerated. Please keep your mic muted if not speaking. Before we dive into the subject matter, allow me to provide a brief introduction of our institute. AADYA Society, Institute for Management and Legal Studies, is in collaboration with SADBA Institute of Technology and Management, is committed towards serving the entire Northeast region of India with excellence in management education, training, research, and development, and legal awareness programs. We firmly believe that these pillars are essential for the holistic development of the region. For more details, please you can visit website rdsociety.in and sadbaindia.org. Today, we have a panel of distinguished speakers who will provide their perspectives on this topic, who will share their invaluable insight and experiences. We convey our heartfelt gratitude to our honorable speakers. They are at first Mr. Viraj Das, who is currently serving as a Superintendent of Police Communication Assam. He is an engineering graduate in the field of Electronics and Communication, AMIE, the Institute of Engineers India, PG Diploma in Cyber Law, Cybercrime Investigation and Digital Forensic from NLIU, Bhopal. Recently, in the month of January 2023, he delivered his lecture on Darknet, a challenge for law enforcement agencies at the 11th International Conference of Indigenous and Cultural Psychology, organized by University of Malaysia, Sabah, Malaysia. We really need another webinar to cover his contribution as a speaker, as an author, and all other his achievements. Sir, we are very obliged and thankful that you have taken out time for this webinar, in spite of maintaining such a hectic schedule and a responsible job. Next, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the organizer and the anchor of this webinar, Amrita Chaudhary, who is an active participant at National and Global Digital Policy and Internet Government Discussion. She serves as the Director of CCAOI, serves as United Nations Internet Governance Forum Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group member, Chair, Internet Governance Forum Support Association, Chair, Asian Pacific Regional at-Large Structure at ICANN, President of Internet Society India, Delhi chapter. Amrita has co-founded the Indian School on Internet Governance and is a coordination committee member of Indian IGF Securities for the Geneva Internet Governance Platform and advise youth initiatives such as Youth IGF India. Malavika Rajkumar, who works as intersection of social media governance, digital justice, and the law. Her main area of research include platform accountability, social media regulatory governance, women's rights, gender-based violence, and information design. Mr. Rahul Sharma is the founder of The Perspective and Great A's, with more than a decade's experience working in technology, public policy, cybersecurity, and privacy space, engaging with a range of stakeholders locally and globally to address the challenges in the evolving cyber ecosystem and value add as the trusted advisor. And Mr. Vijayan Singh, a senior member of Ikigai Public Policy and Advisory Team, Vijayendra specialized in cybersecurity, data, cloud, telecom, and space law. Another speaker, Mr. Santanu, is a senior associate at the New Delhi office of Sardul Amarchand Mangaldas and Company. He practiced in the technology, media, and telecom sector and has experience with litigations, advisory, contractual, policy, government affairs, as well as transactional mandates. I welcome the distinguished speakers and our guests who have supported us in organizing this webinar. Your contribution has been instrumental in making this webinar possible, and we are immensely grateful for your support. Once again, I extend my heartfelt welcome to all of you, and I wish you a fruitful and enlightening experience throughout this webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Mitali. Thanks for the note to everyone. And before we go to Mr. Das, I would just give, like to give an overview of, the cybercrime, the evolving nature of cybercrime, and a big thanks to AADYA for initiating this online discussion. I am from Guwahati and I always wanted to do something in Guwahati, and they gave me the opportune time to do this. If we look at internet today, it has become an integral part of our lives. And we have all benefited from it. Even now when we are communicating, we are using the internet. However, we also see a darker side on the internet. And as internet users, we need to be aware of the harms which are there online, it is something like what we do in our real life. We know there is traffic in the street, there are a number of cars, there are accidents rising, but that doesn't stop us from crossing the street or driving on the road. All we need to do is be cautious and follow the rules. So before I go into a bit more about this topic, I wanted to speak a bit about CCAOI. We work on capacity building, research, advocacy in India mostly, and a bit in South Asia. And we work on internet and digital policies, representing different interest groups. And what we always encourage is more participation from stakeholders from across the country. Because if you look at technology or regulation, technology affects all of us. When regulations are made, it affects everyone across the country.
Recording in progress.
So it is important that people participate and understand what is happening in the tech policy, and that is why we want to have more such discussions. Now, if we look at cybercrime today, it is evolving. And in this age, we are seeing, since everything is going digital, we are seeing an increase, a phenomenal increase in its growth, both at the global level and at the national level. We see very sophisticated attacks like the ransomware or distributed denial services, where critical infrastructure such as health, energy are attacked. We had the AIMS ransomware attack last year, for example. Organizations are attacked. We see even countries being attacked. If you look at the Ukraine crisis, you see, one country and the other being attacked. We see financial frauds. You get messages that, click on this link, and when you click on it, money is taken out. You have identity threats. There are child sexual abuse issues which are rising. There is a lot of gender-based violence which is growing. People are being trolled online. Your identity is taken. There is revenge porn, as we call it, cyber flashing, dark web, which Mr. Biraj Das is going to speak about more. You get cyberbullying, doxing, and it goes on. And with new technologies such as ChatGPT, which you may be hearing about, these things are growing, because just as students use it to do their homeworks, even criminals are using it for more, targeted phishing attacks, writing malicious codes, etc. Today, we are also seeing countries attacking the other. State-sponsored attacks are growing. And if you look at it, the cybercrime industry has become a huge industry, and it's a big business. It is estimated by some that it is about $1.5 trillion economy. And you will also find some criminal groups working like legitimate organizations. They offer ransomware as service. They even give pop-up advertisements to sell their products. Now, even in India, the cybercrime figures are rising year on year. You find figures which say that weekly there are, in the last quarter, there were about 2,000 plus attacks, which is higher than previous years. Indian companies are being attacked. If you look at the Indian Cyber Emergency Response Team, or CERTIN, they have reported that in the first half of 2022, there were more than 6,74,000 cyber incidents, reported cyber incidents. And if you look at the National Crime Report Bureau's report, though it's a bit old, of 2021, there is an increase, year-on-year increase in cyber attacks. And if you look at 2020's numbers, 61% of the cybercrime reported were about fraud, nearly 9% about sexual exploitation, and then extortion. However, even in Assam, it is rising. The number of reported cases, and even gender-based violence is a concern in Assam. The women had always been safe, but the reports show something different. However, the concern is also that though the number of cybercrime, the number of actual cybercrime is much more than the reported one, but even amongst what is being reported, the number of cases in which legal action has been taken is quite less. So that there is also a gap in it. So if we look at combating cybercrime, it is not only one person's job. It is just not the police who has to do, or the regulations which has to be done, but it has to be a joint effort. Like, you not only need to enhance the critical infrastructure, applications, network, cloud, especially with Internet of Things, etc., coming, or new technologies, but we also need to raise the awareness of people on what is safe, cyber hygiene, how you should use it, what you should not do on the internet. Teach children, for example, because they are vulnerable, on safe surfing and how they can protect themselves online. But what is also important is to know how to report a cyber incident. What are the redressal mechanisms available? How to take help? Because, even after doing everything, you may be attacked, but how do you take that? How do you get your redressal is important. So there are a lot of things which are being done, but we will hear more from the speakers today. And like, for example, Shantanu and Vijayant would be sharing more on what are the regulatory mechanisms which are there, how to report a cybercrime, etc. But before that, we will move to Mr. Biraj Das. He has a presentation for us. He wants to speak more and share a bit about the dark web, the concerns which law enforcement has, and what as individual users needs to be taken care of. Mr. Das, I have given you sharing responsibility. Could you try to share your presentation?
Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, in case you want to share your presentation, I have given you.
Okay, thanks. And wish you all a very pleasant afternoon. And then please allow me to express my gratitude to be a part of this distinguished panelist. I must express my thanks to Amrita Chaudhary ma'am, Director CCAOI, and Advocate Mitali Dwara ma'am, and Pranami Goswami ma'am. And last but not the least, actually, probably she is not one of the panelists today. Her name is Ashleta. She's a young engineer working for some irrigation department. And I think my screen is visible to all of you.
I think yes.
Yeah.
It's visible. The presentation now. We can see your laptop.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
It's okay.
You would have to go to your presentation. Yes, we can see it. If you can go in the slide sharing mode, it would be better.
Yeah. Is it visible to all?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah, very, very visible. Very visible.
Okay, fine. Okay. See, today I'm not here to, within this stipulated time, I'm not here to give you talk about the technological gizmos of the rocket science. I'll be emphasizing on the very basic fundamental aspects of the dark web. Okay, before specking into the dark web, these are the all foundation slides. You can say these are the ice beating slides. First of all, as per IT Act 2000, the definition of computer, it is something like this. It makes any electronic or magnetic, optical, or other high-speed data processing device or system. I will not read out the entire thing. So today, what I would like to say, the computer, it doesn't mean that as per law that it's a desktop or it has needs to be a laptop. It's nothing like that. Anything which is being controlled by the microcontroller, that's a computer nowadays. So now even our vehicles, our washing machine, our microwave, these are all computers except calculators. Calculator means it doesn't work in conjunction with external files. So now, when as a crime investigator, as a part of law enforcement agency, so how after a crime is being reported, how the agency initiates its investigation? So first, two steps is a generic, even though if a crime is being committed in the physical space, that also determining the nature of crime and conducting an initial investigation. First, most critical part of investigation is probably so many lawyers are also sitting here, and hope I'm not speaking the hornet nest. I'm talking something about law. So first thing is identifying the possible and potential digital evidence, which is residing either in the computer or in other memory devices. That also after the perpetrator or the suspect, he has to leave some kind of footprints or some kind of evidences in his system or in other computer devices. And the law enforcement agencies to apprehend or to get his statement. So he needs to be apprehended. So for that, his location, identity, other things needs to be ascertained. The second part is perform digital forensic. These are the usual things which only 6 things needs to be carried out because court will go through the evidences or the state evidences and exhibits which are produced to the court of law. So the first and foremost thing is the suspect or the criminal's location, physical location, and the footprints which you are leaving in the devices. So now, suppose we have managed to got the perpetrators or suspects' IP address. So digitally, how? Because like once we get his IP address, then what happens? There are few sites where IP lookups are being maintained. Probably all of you are aware of that. What is the IP address? Because there is a protocol or the network which we call TCP/IP network. We all are connected to IP address. So that where the IP lookup is being maintained, there we can say that through that IP address, his location and what service provider he is using. So these things we can avail. So now we see this IP address which I put in this, so that when we law enforcement agency also we use this kind of sites to ascertain the IP details. This is ipaddress.org. So now you can see this is being reflected on the screen within the red box that the person, the IP address details is somewhere from Assam, Guwahati, and the ISP is reliance.com. So now more the subscriber details or the other details of the person. So then what we can, the law enforcement agencies, or some of you are lawyers, so you know very well 91 CRPC. Then what we have to do, we have to start a 91 CRPC notice with these details at this specific time. And this IP address was used by one of our suspects, and you have to furnish the details of subscriber details or cache or whatever data is available pertaining to the suspect to be he has to produce it to the agency. So then his last long other details are also which are reflecting in the IP lookup. Now we need to know what is footprint. I told you that two things we have to be ascertained and need to be ascertained, and which will be later on subsequently will be produced to the court of law. So now the footprint is the definition of footprint. Like digital footprint is the data that is left behind when users have been online or when he was working in the computer. So there are two types of footprints. The footprints, one is active and passive. Passive is what? Unknowingly, whenever we browse over the internet, then unknowingly we leave some kind of information. So this may be utilized by good purpose or bad purpose, but here only we are talking about the criminal perspective. Then this is we leave some like IP addresses and then our browsing details and so many things. So, but unknowingly. These are all, whenever you browse, somehow without our knowledge, something is being stored in the computer, and that will be a part of the browsing history. So then the active digital footprint, say in a very concise manner, I'm speaking now because only 10 minutes is given to me. So in this stipulated times, certain some critical information I would like to share. So active digital footprints that knowingly we post certain things, our location, some of our photographs, and date of birth, so many informations we leave on the internet, later on which become part of, it's like when we get victimized and then that perpetrator they use using this information which were deliberately we leave behind. So now my today's subject is about darknet. So now, as I say, when agency carries out the investigation, first thing he needs to know, to first and foremost, we need that the perpetrator's address, his location, and then the footprints which are leaving behind in the system. So any criminal, when he commits a crime, he'll put all his effort to conceal his identity, and he will not leave any kind of evidences behind. So now, if you all may be flabbergasted if I say that only 4% of the internet is visible to us readily. So this 96%, we cannot get those information because they're not readily available to us. So now the types of based on the readily availability to the browser, the types of nets of web is like the surface web, deep web, and dark web. Surface web is something like any normal browser, using any normal browser, like it may be Firefox or Internet Explorer or Opera or Google Chrome, any normal browser. So if you search in Google, even if you type my name, at least some kind of hits you'll get, 2-3 hits you'll get. So if you these are the information which are available in the surface web. These are all indexable or searchable and readily available to the public. And then suppose if you want to know what about the amount of which is available in my bank account, whatever loans I'm having, a certain information. To get those information, you need to have credentials. You need to know my passcode or PIN or username. Certain credentials you need to have. These are these data which are not readily available to the public. That these are all residing in the deep web. And last, the darknet. Darknet is what only criminal purpose, because as I said at the very outset that criminals, for the first and foremost things what he will try to do, he will try to conceal his identity, he'll try to conceal his location, and he will not leave any kind of evidences so that that will give a lead to the investigating agency. So that in that purpose, the real crimes, those organized crimes, these are all being committed over the darknet. So darknet only it is because when whatever you do in the darknet, it will not leave any kind of digital footprints, and his location also is next to impossible to explain that. So now, as I said, that surface web, this is visible, readily visible to the public, and it can be indexable, searchable, readily available to the general public, searchable with any standard search engine. Or you can say Google, DuckDuckGo, Yandex, or any kind of search engine. So now, which is indexable. Then as I say, the deep web. Deep web is like these are not indexable. So if you type that how much money Birazas is having in his bank account, so that information you will never get. And suppose if you try to get the publications, suppose you know some research scholar, or you want to know that what are the publications he or she had. So those kind of information readily it's not available to you. For that you need to have credentials, and these are not indexable. This is not searchable by any search engine, but it can be searched, but you need to have the credentials readily not available to the general public. And the darknet is what? It's completely invisible unless and until using a spatial software. Using normal browser or browsing or any normal search engine, you will not get any information. So this information only you can get using some special kind of browser. Users and website operators remain anonymous or remain untraceable. This is the vital point. Why the perpetrators they use dark web. This is all about drugs, all organized crime, pornography, weapons, assassins, red room, counterfeit forgeries, and hacking tools, etc. If time permits, I'll try to show some dark side. So, and even the red room. Probably all of you know what is red room. And now, if we compare it with the tip of an iceberg, something looks like this. So now, only as I said, only 4%, which is searchable, indexable, which is readily available with any general public, to any general public. And deep web, as I said, these are all financial records, medical records, legal documents to access those data. Using any normal web browser, you can get those data, but you need to have the credentials. You need to have the required credential, otherwise you will not be able to access those data, or you can't even see that. And the dark web is all about crimes, because or that professional criminal. It's not like somebody, this lover, he had a problem with his girlfriend, and just to undermine that girl or the lady, he'll be posting something obnoxious in the internet just to undermine the lady. These are all petty criminals. Actually, these cannot be turned as pretty criminals as well. These are all mentally imbalanced person, what we call. And then that for browsing the darknet, there's a special browser that we call that is most of the people, they use this browser, that's Tor, the onion router. It's all about the criminal activities. The drug traffickers, they buy, and the buyers, they buy, and the drug traffickers, they sell drugs, and the red room activities, counterfeit notes, and even you can get passports, illegal passports. How they do that, I have not done any kind of R&D on that, but this is possible. So now, I said this is one of the dark side. This is a Silk Road, and it was finally it was cracked by AADYA, and it was banned. The Silk Road is only about drugs. Now you can buy arms also using darknet. That practically also how it is done. And now Red Room. So Red Room, if you just let me in a very comprehensive manner, I just would like to say that Red Room, some people, even in the internet, some it's like websites, I got the news that even when Sushant Singh Rajput was murdered, that was also kind of Red Room activity. So some perpetrators, some mentally this mentally obnoxious kind of people are there that he wants to see when a young man is being murdered, if his eyes are being taken out, so how he is reacting. So these are all Red Room activities. There are so many movies also on that. So now let's talk a bit about the Tor. So Tor is all the persons, those who browse the darknet, they use Tor. The Tor is actually it's a free and open source software. And then if you, even normal people also, they can for normal things also Tor browser can be used. But only things when you use Tor browser, no footprints are left behind, and then your location cannot be exploited. This it enables anonymous communication. Even this can be downloaded from Tor project sites, and then the even normal person also, for normal activity also Tor can be used. So now there are actually 7 relays, what they call it volunteers around the world to conceal a user's location and dodging surveillance or traffic analysis. In her speech, Amita Chaudhary ma'am was telling, they even Ukraine and Russia war also, there kind of means like cyber activities also going on. So now just I would like to add something on that. See, as cyber warfare is concerned, already we all are in the state of war. Only if our prefrontal cortex is enhanced with a lot of information, then we will not get victimized. Otherwise, at any instant or any point of time, we may be victimized. So now how darknet is used by Ukraine, because all the BBC sites, BBC website, Twitter, any kind of social media sites are banned in Russia. So even you cannot blame all the time. Suppose if one country is doing Pakistan, we all know the proxy. We are all in a state of proxy war. Pakistan regular army cannot come and attack us, but they're sending terrorists. Now all Pakistanis may not be supporting that. The same way, even though Russia is attacking Ukraine, all Russians, they are not supporting that attack. So now, that's that sentiment of our other people that should not reach to the Russian public. So for that, what they do, they are burying this, they are blocking, they are So these sites cannot be opened in their domain, in their internet domain. So they are just blocking these sites. But if you upload certain things in dark web, that cannot be blocked. That cannot be because see, now we are having a webinar. This can be monitored, or this can be what in cybercrime or in that language it is said eavesdropping, the man in middle attack. So what we are talking now, third person may be listening because it's not like that. Whatever encryption is there, any agency, any intelligence agency, they can carry out the eavesdropping things, that so that whatever conversation we are having, that can be they can put us even under surveillance. But we should do certain things when we communicate using dark web that cannot be put under surveillance. So now, as I said, the Ukraine war, even the Amrita memo was also saying that their cyber activities or cyber tactics are also being used in this war. The Russian and Ukraine cyber war in the deep and dark web as well. How it is that there's just the hits I have given you. The more you can go more deep into that if you, let's say, if you Google it, and then if you try to get more insight about this, then definitely all these information are available in the internet. So now, as I said, even Twitter also was banned in Russia, but Twitter embraces a dark way to bypass the ban. So that how they are doing it. Actually, practically, it is very easy. It's not like that. It doesn't need much technical knowledge, or you need to know so many coding. So very basic things you need to know. Then even you also can have your own sites in darknet, and then you also can upload information in the darknet. In darknet, whenever you browse in Tor, or if you communicate using darknet, no third party can monitor whatever you are doing. So this is all kind of criminal activities, because criminal activities, because suppose a noble person, he will never try to conceal his location or conceal his information. Only the things which the person who trying to commit some kind of crime, which law is not permitting, so then only he will try to conceal his location, or he doesn't want to leave any kind of traces. So now, as I said, the BBC also launches darknet for mirroring. So they have a mirror site that is in the darknet. So now the darknet sites, it's not like a common site. It doesn't look like www.soandso.com or something like that. It's actually it's an alphanumeric value. It's basically a public key. If you are aware of cryptography, then you know there's a cryptography, then probably you'll know much better that what is a public key and the private key. This is basically a public key. So it will not be readily available to the public. But if you manage to get this key, then you can browse into their sites. So something looks like that. And now professional criminals, why they use darknet? The first and more foremost thing is they can maintain anonymity. Their location cannot be ascertained easily, so that law agencies cannot reach them to apprehend. So they do not leave any kind of traces. They do not leave any kind of footprints, which in slides itself I try to explain. And detection is next to important. Even very criminal investigating agencies and the intelligence agencies like CIA and all also, most of the cases they even fail to detect certain cases. Now, few dark sites, even Facebook also, they have dark sites which can be opened in the darknet. See, their extension is always it looks like it's something like Onion. It seems we are using Onion router. So this extension is not like .com or .org or something like that. This always extension is .onion. So now, practically, let me show you. So first thing, this is I open Tor. So when you open Tor, I'm just, so Amita ma'am, my screen is visible to you, no?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's visible.
Okay, I'm opening Tor. I'll connect. Every time when I connect to the Tor network, it always chooses different paths. So even though I'm sitting in Guwahati, but virtually, if somebody try to trace me, if some agency, if they try to trace me, they will not get my Guwahati location. It is randomly, or because they have their own algorithm, and then through that algorithm, they will find my place somewhere else. It's relatively bit slow, and then why it is slow, because it's coming through different relays. And then different hopping. So that makes this accessing this sites relatively a little slow.
Mr. Das, while this connection gets established, Sanjeev Roy had a question for you. Mr. Roy, do you want to ask the question or should I read it out?
Yeah, he can carry on, no problem.
You are muted, Mr. Das. Let me unmute you. Give me a moment. You need to unmute yourself, Mr. Das. I have...
No, I'm unmuted.
Oh, no. I'm talking to, sorry, Mr. Sanjeev Roy. Sorry, his question was, how does the anonymity provided by the darknet affect the investigative processes of the law enforcement agency?
And that is what I'm trying to explain. Let this to open. First thing, it does. They have the slides I told you, there are 7,000 relays to maintain their anonymity. So, like, see, their algorithm, their technology is entirely different, and how technically it is possible. Even I'm not much aware of that. But the only thing is, I know that they have a separate network, the separate path. Only thing is, when we get into only my entry node only can be reflected in the when we try to analyze their network. Only my entry and exit points only they use the normal internet. But rest of the things, the path, how they follow, how they ascertain the path, and that's a different algorithm they have. So that is what I'm trying to explain. And then if time permits, and even I'll just upload my site also, then we'll understand better. But this is not opening now. Next to heavyweight assembly, lower assembly.
We will take a few questions, Mr. Das, then for that time. I think sometimes when you are showing, etc., there may be some issues.
Oh, no problem, please.
Right. Is there any other question for Mr. Das from the audience? You can raise your hand or you can ask it over chat. But Mr. Roy, just to answer you, yes, anonymity is difficult, but many agencies like the FBI, etc., Europol also operate on the dark web and the other places. So they look at traces, and many times many intergovernmental, country organizations work together, and they do a lot of overhaul, especially drug deals, etc., drug cartels, etc., on the dark web. And there have been some successful stories also. So even investigative agencies are operating in the dark web to get more information, because that's where you get the footprints. But while I guess Mr. Biraj Das tries to establish the condition, I could perhaps go to the panelists once, and perhaps I go, whom should I go to, Vijayant or Shantanu? Perhaps Vijayant. Vijayant, what legal provisions do we have in the law to protect people online, by the time Mr. Das's connection gets established?
Of course. Thanks for the question, Amita. And also thanks for the invitation to come and speak here and be part of this very important discussion on a very important topic. So just to answer your question, I will divide my answer in two parts. First, what are, the substantive provisions for cyber offenses or cybercrime under, legislations, laws like the Information Technology Act and the Indian Penal Code. And second, speak briefly about what is the procedural framework, through which victims can seek justice, through which they can seek compensation, and also how offenders can be punished when some of these offenses occur. Now, to the first part, which is, just what are the substantive provisions under law? The Information Technology Act of 2000, the IT Act, is obviously the primary legislation, that deals with the cyberspace. It deals with cybersecurity, data protection, and obviously cybercrime as well. Now, from a cyber offense perspective, one of its objectives is to safeguard electronic data, computer systems, information and record, and prevent unauthorized access or disclosure and use of such information, and also unauthorized access of these computer systems. Very importantly, it also identifies, certain activities like hacking, DDoS attacks, malware, phishing, identity fraud, electronic theft as offenses, and provides us both a civil and criminal framework to kind of prosecute some of these offenses. The IT Act also has a wide, a whole set of rules issued under it that regulate different aspects of cybersecurity, also touching upon the issue of cybercrime as well, specifically from the perspective of companies, service providers, and intermediaries, and their obligations to ensure cybersecurity and that cybercrime and cyber offenses don't occur. For example, you have the CERT-in rules of 2013, the directions issued last year as well. You have intermediary guidelines of 2021. You have the sensitive personal information rules of 2011, amongst others. All of which in some shape and form, as I mentioned, obligate service providers, intermediaries to implement security measures to protect themselves against cyber attacks and ensure that these offenses don't occur. These rules also flesh out and create the institutional setup for certain bodies like the CERT-in, which is the administrative authority for addressing cyber incidents when they occur, and the NCIIPC, which is obviously the government body in charge of cybersecurity of critical information infrastructure. Beyond the IT Act, there is obviously the IPC, the Indian Penal Code, and that punishes traditional offenses, that occur in the cyberspace, which are, defamation, cheating, criminal intimidation, obscenity, and so on. You also have the CRPC, which kind of sets out the procedural aspect for how these crimes are investigated and adjudicated. And beyond this, there are obviously sectoral regulations as well, such as those issued by the Reserve Bank of India and other sectoral regulators. They apply to regulated entities like banks, financial institutions, and again, they are put obligations on these entities to kind of put in place measures to ensure that, these cyber attacks don't occur. Now, I'll quickly also touch upon very briefly on the adjudicatory and grievance redressal mechanism, for when these offenses occur, and that's found under the IT Act. And essentially, victims of these offenses, that I've just outlined briefly, they have the right to seek damages and compensation from attackers under the IT Act. And this process is a two-tier process for resolving such dispute. There is the initial adjudication, and then after that, there is an option to appeal whatever decision comes for that. For instance, if there is a person who has violated, let's say, Section 43 of the IT Act, then that person could be liable to compensate any person who has been harmed by their action. Now, to claim compensation, the victim will have to approach the adjudicating officer, which is that first level of this particular process. That is the adjudicating officer is the appropriate authority identified under the law to resolve such matters, make a decision, and award damages. Any decision made by the adjudicating officer can be challenged by either party to a higher body. This was earlier the Cyber Appellate Tribunal, but this was resolved, and now this particular function has been given now to the Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal, which is the TDSAT. Obviously, if any party is dissatisfied with the TDSAT's decision, then they can approach the High Court as well for redress. And yeah, that's broadly just a very, very brief overview of the framework.
Thanks, Vijayant. And Mr. Das, I think perhaps you have an office firewall. Because of that, you may not be able to go into the Tor or the dark web. And I'll come back to you, Vijayant. There was a question which was posed by Mr. Sanjeev Roy that, when we are faced with queries, when we are faced with issues like the ransomware attack at AIMS, what can we do to prevent such attacks, and how the AIMS restored all its data? Mr. Birajdas, would you have any idea of that? Or would you like, or in case you or any of the participants, Rahul, for example, do you want to, after Mr. Das, would you like to comment on that?
No, I didn't hear you properly, ma'am. What was
okay,
the question?
His question is that, as we know that there was an AIMS ransomware attack, the All India Institute last year. So what can we do to prevent such attacks, and how was AIMS restored and with all its data? And honestly saying, Mr. Sanjeev Roy, we are not sure if all the data was retrieved. That's my gut feeling. We really don't know, but Mr. Das, would you like to comment on
No, I was not part of the investigation, but ransomware and thing is...
My question is, we all know AIMS daily face like ransom attack. What all we can do to prevent us from such attacks, and how the AIMS restored all of its data back?
I would like to respond to that. And after that, actually, I have a few things to talk about the darknet. That after I'll respond to Mr. Sanjay Roy's question, and then I'll just say 2 minutes or 1 minute on the darknet, and then I'll have to leave for another meeting. But anyway, first thing I thought of talking about that only because the denial of distributed denial of services attack or ransom attack, these are actually these attacks are possible only because of one attack. That is what called social engineering attack. This is one of the most deadliest attack factor as we face. Even so many cases I investigated, and I was not part of the AIMS because I'm from my jurisdiction is confined to my state. And then actually that attack factor, what I talked about, the social engineering, so they do not use any kind of software, or they do not use any kind of hacking tools. What they do, there's some procedures using that, and they will put you in trance so that he can or she can manipulate you emotionally. Then definitely for malicious purposes to get your system compromised. So it's not like that straight away. If I tell someone that please click on this link, or please give me your password, no, that things never happen to that. First and foremost, that he has to capture in psychological. So that seminar which are being organized by Amita Chaudhary or Mitali Dwara, these seminars, what happens, this enhances our prefrontal cortex. This is actually the psychological operation. This is basically a psyop. So if we can capture you psychological, then he will ask you to do, you click on that and this, that. Then finally what happens? So how they did I have not done any case study on that, but I'm just emphasizing something about the social engineering. Then what happens, that the victim, he gets compromised, then he breaks some kind of security protocol. Then your system gets compromised. Then all kinds of data, eventually very sensitive data, which was even shared by some of our IFS officers also, one IFS officer. And then when she was posted in Lahore, she was a victim of social engineering attack. So her name and all details, they're all available in the public domain. So I'll not talk much about that. So what Mr. Biswant was saying, so on that perspective, I just would like to tell one thing: to carry out investigation, to take because for trial and in the court of law, only thing is, yes, verbal statement is also plays a pivotal role. But if it is a 164, it is recorded as per CRPC 164. But most of the things, court will things like only it will accept only the evidences which has been collected by the officer, whether he's following proper guide, lawful guidances or not, and provided he will gather the information, evidences, provided it is available from the system where the crime was committed. And darknet is what I was trying to explain practically. No, it's not being connected yet. I don't know why it is happening. So when you browse some certain things using Tor, next time when you close your Tor, or next time when you get into Tor, again you will establish a new connection. It will not leave any kind of browsing history. The number of what I have done tomorrow, if my system is please as per proper IT section, if it is forensically examined. So at what time, what means like webinar I was having using my computer, all these details will be remaining here because the browsing history will be remaining in my memory. So now thing is to establish the crime, and then to the evidences and other details pertaining to the crime, will be produced to the court. Only the court will will be able to give proper verdict. In darknet, nothing of that sort of information will be remaining. Okay, some cases were cracked by NIA. Even I also know that details I'm not going to tell in this forum. There's some security issues are there. Now, see that is not like the straight away from they have got the IP address of the perpetrator and they conducted raid and they could apprehend the perpetrator or the criminal. It's not like that because there are some other policing tactics are there. So using those things only, they could able to reach the person who was committing the crime, and the evidences. Then later on, the physical evidences was gathered and punished. So now, actually, practically, I was putting all kind of effort, but it's a technical issue. You know, digital world, it is only two states. It is on or off. It will work or it will not work. There's no intermediate state. So unfortunately, even we are also victim of that state because that's why it's slightly apart from the darknet. So any digital devices. So when it's, you can see, I'm asking if anyone can respond. Whenever a computer is switched on, at the first instant, instantly what happens when you switch on the computer? Can any one of you respond? Excuse me. Whenever you switch on the computer, instantly what happens?
Would anyone like to respond to Mr. Das?
Whenever you switch on the computer, instantly what happens? When you switch on the computer, you push on the switch button, instantly what happens? Do anyone ever observe what is happening? The computer is your slave, actually. You give instruction, he'll execute. Of its own, it cannot do it. Okay. So when, as I said, that any digital device, it has only got two states. It will work or it will not work. It is high or low. It's 1 or 0. In the contemporary people, in the contemporary English, the people say, I want answer in 0 or 1. Actually, this is a digital language. Now, when every digital device, it has got its own self-diagnostic mechanism. When you switch on the computer, instantly, we just switch on the computer. If you type no, computer will not respond you. If you click no, computer will not respond you. Computer will then, first it will run. It's a small program. It is installed in the BIOS. It's called POST, P-O-S-T, POST, power on self-test. When you switch on the computer, any digital device, first you'll execute POST. POST is what? The minimal, the hardware which is required to load your operating system. Once post is executed successfully, then operating system will be loaded. Then if you type something, so when you switch on the computer, there will be a black screen. You can see it is testing this much amount of RAM. Then it is checking, it will be checking your keyboard. Then you can see the flashes in the keyboard. It will check the speaker logic. Then you see there's a beep sound. The difference, the minimal hardware which is required to load your operating system. And once your post is executed successfully, then only it will give you the control of the computer. Once system is not post is not executed successfully, the system will be hanged. Hanged means what? The microprocessor will stop giving addresses. So now think why I say, so now even our car is a computer. So instantly you should not ignite your car. You switch on the car, you will see in the dashboard some light will glow and will go off. That means it executed the post. Car is also a computer as per IPX2 subsection 1I, because car has got Bluetooth. The car can be networked with your computer or your mobile, any digital device. So with that, I think I should conclude. I am very sorry I was not able to show you practical. Oh, it has come. The darknet, one side I will show you. It has come. And then I'll share my screen now. Amita ma'am, can I spend 2 minutes more?
Sure. Yes, you can.
Yes, okay, ma'am. So, so this is Tor browser. And now I'll show you. So there were so many sites. Then let me show you one site. I don't know how much time it will take again. In normal sites also you can open here, like Google. If you want to open Google, Google also you can open. Now it will take a lot of time.
Yeah, I guess perhaps Mr. Das, we will have something of this kind another time, because even you have paucity of time and we have the speakers also waiting. Perhaps we can. Okay.
It has come here. But just I'd like to show one side. Suppose this is the dark side. Suppose somebody wants to LSD. So now how it is coming in the next, I'll just show you the LSD. Suppose, and now so your location, if you click here, your location, my location is somewhere from, it's coming through United States, France, and then finally Johannur or something like that. So now see, I cite LSD. So there are a hell lot of sites from where you can buy LSD. The drug trafficker, there, because how it is bought, that is also another thing. That also time will not permit me to show you all this, but this site will come from where you can buy that LSD drugs. So now because my location is, it is showing somewhere here. If my agency, if they try to investigate, they will find my location somewhere here. And now if I close this site, if I close this site, all data has gone. If next time when again I go to Tor, it will not maintaining any history. So that is the challenge for any law enforcement agency worldwide to investigate the crimes which is being committed over the darknet. With this, I conclude my say, and ma'am, if there is any question, I'll respond, or else then we can give permission.
No, I understand, Mr. Das, and thank you so much for taking out time and explaining these things and even showing a demonstration of how it works. I understand you have to leave, and that's what Mitali said, but thank you so much. We'll definitely be in touch with you, and it has been very informative, at least for most of the people. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, nice meeting you all. And
I'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
Okay,
so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I will move to Shantanu. Shantanu, Vijayant was speaking about the various legal provisions, etc. But as individual users or even lawyers, for example, because we have some lawyers in the room, how is a case filed? As in, one is filing a case online, filing cases with, even a Facebook or a Google or anyone. How does one do so? If you could just explain a bit,
Right. So when we're looking at cyber crimes, I think Vijayant generally took us through the provisions, but we also need to look at it that it's in the first instance a crime to begin with. So usually when we see an instance, and if one of us is a victim or is working with the victim, our first step would be to involve the relevant agency, the law enforcement agency. In most cases, that would be the police. So usually the first step, regardless of what the crime is, because I think, again, we saw that cyber crime online can take a variety of shapes. And ultimately, why we classify something as cybercrime is not a matter of law, but simply because the internet or an electronic source has been used to perpetrate that crime more often than not. So even, let's say, something like a bank fraud, or if it's a case of cyberbullying or cyber stalking, it's ultimately a matter of that I'm using the internet to do something that I'm anyway not permitted to do. So usually the first step in such cases is to approach the law enforcement agency, and that's how we usually do it as well. That if you've been a victim of a cybercrime, your first instance is to go to the police, go to the relevant police station, the one that has jurisdiction over the crime, the closest one, as you would report any other crime. You provide them all the details, some details that sir also mentioned, for example, in context of the cybercrime. So if you have a website, if you have a screenshot, if you have any other instance of what may have happened, if you have been fortunate enough to even have the IP address or any other information about how that specific crime has been perpetrated, that's information you furnish to the police, preferably in written form or electronic form, as the case may be. And that is how you would file a complaint ordinarily. The government has also, the Indian government has now created a national cybercrime reporting portal, which allows individuals to file their complaints directly online. There's a website also, it's cybercrime.gov.in. You can go in, it's a fairly standard form. You can, all of this that I'm talking about, you can upload your evidence online. You can, in certain cases, for example, when the content relates to women or children, when we're having those kind of crimes, you can even submit a complaint anonymously, because a lot of people might have issues about revealing identity or not being comfortable sharing such information online. All of that is possible to do entirely online, and at that point, but ultimately we must understand that this is also forwarded to the relevant police station, police officer, jurisdiction, and it's ultimately that agency that will look at it and initiate the investigation. Some states, given that we see police varying, have also created special cybercrime police stations, or have a cybercrime cell or a cybercrime department. So in Delhi, for instance, where I primarily practice, every district has a specific cybercrime police station where the investigation of the offense usually happens. And these are officers, experts who are trained in all of what sir was explaining. So for instance, cyber forensics, understanding how to uncover all those digital traces and all of that. So this is usually being done by these cyber police stations. But ultimately, we must know that it's not that you only need to go to a cyber police station to register your complaint, or you can go to any police station and proceed as if any other crime as you would report in the same manner. Just two more things I would like to flag generally before we get into specifics and any queries is that sometimes it's a question of the police requiring information, because one very important part of activity that is perpetrated online is that anonymity is a thing. Very often you don't know who is the perpetrator. It could be somebody anonymous, it could be somebody using a fake name, somebody not having a name at all. So that is something that in most other crimes, we possibly have some very clear way of understanding where it's coming from. That may not be the case for a lot of cyber crimes. So that is something that the investigation, that the law enforcement agencies have an ability to, as sir said, if you have the IP address, you can go to the Reliance Jio or Airtel or whichever provider it is. If it's happening online, you can go to the website, you can ask the intermediary, whosoever is involved. The police and the law enforcement agencies have an ability. If it's financial crime, you can go to the bank, you can go to the payment gateway, howsoever. So all of that information, law enforcement agencies in India are empowered to enact. And the other point that I would want to make is that when very often online we see instances of content being circulated, that very often the crime is some sensitive information of mine, might be some pictures, might be some hateful posts, whatever else, it's being circulated online, and that is where the cybercrime is coming from. Again, in most of these cases, the law enforcement agencies, the police officers also have an ability to go and have that content stopped, have the circulation of that content stopped by approaching the relevant entity that is. So if that's an immediate concern that most victims would ordinarily have, that, there's this content that's circulating. I need to stop it. It's sensitive content. It's personal information. Might be pictures, might be videos, might be anything. So that's also something that we can ask for. In such cases, of course, it's usually more helpful to go and talk to the law enforcement individuals yourself, because if you do it online, sometimes there's some lag, some gap, some delay, and if it's a time-sensitive matter. But that is roughly how cybercrimes work, of course.
Hello. Oh. Bluetooth.
Okay. Yeah, so roughly that's how you would go about reporting a cybercrime. Vijayant also mentioned a couple of specific procedures that under the IT Act you have the option to go to get compensation, and all of that, of course, that exists. You are also, of course, always open to go to court and seek your damages under. But I mean, ordinarily, when we're looking at a criminal offense, your immediate reaction is that you would want the mischief to be stopped. For instance, if it's a case of financial fraud, you want your money back. If it's a matter of content being circulated, you want that to be stopped or taken down. So in those cases, it's usually the most effective remedy is for you to go approach the authorities, go with all the evidence that you can reasonably procure, and furnish it to them for further action.
Thanks, Shantanu and Vijayant, for actually laying down what is there in the provision, how these can be remedied. I will come to you all, but I will also go to Malvika and Rahul. And the question is for all four of you, and I will go to Malvika first. That we have various provisions in the law. We also have redressal mechanisms which has been framed. Unfortunately, we also see there is a gap. People find it difficult to seek redressal, even report a cybercrime, even know that, something has happened to them. And especially with new age technologies coming in, what are the gaps you are observing, Malvika? Especially, you look at a lot of gender related issues, hate speech, revenge porn, etc. What do you look at it from the gender lens? What is lacking?
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, AADYA Society and Amrita, for inviting me here today. I think Vijayant and Shantanu have laid out a very comprehensive landscape of the kind of provisions and the sort of approaches you can take to protect yourself as a victim. But I think there are several challenges in the existing information technology landscape, some of which I will highlight today. So starting with some of the on-ground challenges, particularly in the field of gender-based violence, lack of awareness is a big issue. Even as our previous speakers had mentioned, the online reporting crime portals themselves, if there is no tech assistance, it is very difficult to file cases in these platforms, or the complaint in these platforms. Secondly, there's a gender bias at the level of the police station, at the level of the judiciary. So there are several hurdles apart from the existing law enforcement agency hurdles that exist for very particular marginalized groups, which we usually see, particularly in the context of women. There's also an issue of social stigma, because when we look at commonly referred to as revenge porn, I do not subscribe to that term, because it also gives an impression that a certain form of that something wrong was done for revenge to happen to you. Rather, I would refer to it as non-consensual intimate image distribution, which is exactly what it is. And there's a lot of social stigma while approaching police stations, while approaching civil society, while approaching NGOs, because it is your intimate images that are privately being shared. So it is quite difficult to gather up that courage and actually go forward. Apart from these on-ground challenges, the IT Act has been continuously criticized for being quite slow to respond to new forms of cybercrime. That is where the Digital India Act is actually coming in. But the existing landscape of the Indian Penal Code 1860, the IT Act, and multiple state laws that actually help groups get redressal, it is currently not adequate for emerging technologies. And secondly, there are several challenges when it comes to the online public sphere. So one particular example that I can think of is when So IT for Change had done a study where we had looked at around 400 cases, and we wanted to see how the judiciary is responding to cases of online violence. And one key aspect and is a key challenge to adjudication of cybercrime is how the online public sphere itself is recognized. So in 2018, there was a Madras High Court case where a series of vulgar messages had gone directly into the mobile phone of a woman who was sitting in her house. And under the Tamil Nadu Prohibition of Harassment of Women Act, which was one of the charges that were framed while filing the complaint, the judge actually adjudicated that the meaning of the phrase public place could not be extended to her home, even if the messages were directly coming into a mobile phone. And a mobile phone is an item that you take around with you in a public place. So, just looking at the sort of interpretation of the law, it actually defeated the purpose of justice here, because by its very definition, it was very clear that the definition of public place in a law no longer holds true in a digital world. And it's very important for law enforcement agencies and for like the judiciary to update its understanding of the same. Another very clear aspect that we saw from our study is when you have multiple charges. For instance, let's say you have a non-consensual image distribution case where a boyfriend is taking a girlfriend's photo, uploading it online, sharing it with his friends, and then it's going onto a pornographic website. When it actually goes to the court, you have multiple charges of the Indian Penal Code, of the IT Act. And what usually happens is the focus is always on the offline crimes. It's never really on the IT Act provisions or the fact that a mobile phone was used to record pictures of the woman, or that the image was distributed. Usually in these cases, there's a lot of focus on who the woman is, why the woman did this in the first place. So if we can't get beyond these hurdles, it's quite problematic. And I think thirdly, I want to also bring out the fact that most of the provisions in law, especially it's only in 2013 that you had cyber stalking and the 2030 amendments that brought about these crimes. And we're still not keeping up, because there are a lot of new age crimes such as morphing, deep fakes, AI related crimes are also coming up that we hope that the new law will be able to cover. But cyber crimes, particularly some sections, are seen from the lens of obscenity. There's a big question of morality here, where there's a very particular lens of it affecting a body, it affecting society, as opposed to bodily autonomy or privacy. So it's very difficult. For instance, let's say that there is an image of you that is that you haven't consensually shared, but then it is being morphed and then it is being put online. And if there is no sexually explicit image that's going up, even then it is a violation of your bodily privacy, of your autonomy. But how is an actual victim going to go and convince the police station, convince the judiciary? There are a lot of challenges about these things, and it is easier if there's a very strict it would definitely be better if the new law is able to address all these issues. And another big issue that's there is getting content taken down, as the previous speaker had flagged. In one of the cases on X versus YouTube, the judge is actually talking to the victim and to the police, saying that if I am giving orders requesting you to take down content from or de-index the content from Google, why are you not able to do it? And the law enforcement agency, which was based in Delhi, was giving reasons why it's not practically possible to take down viral content, which is something that the IT media rules were trying to address in their previous version. So just quickly ending on a note that when we look at user harms and redressal, the biggest challenge and one of the ways to correct this going forward is that now we have an opportunity through the DIA to actually identify the harms before legislating, identifying the range of harms that need to be addressed, also keeping in mind the existing provisions that are there in the Indian Penal Code, in the SCST Act, in state acts, in the IPC. And also, it's important to define harm not only for a user online, but also for non-users. In one of the studies that we did, where there was a lot of hate speech and gender trolling against women, there were a lot of non-users that were being targeted online. And if they are not even on these platforms, how do they even know, firstly? And secondly, even if they know, what are the redressal mechanisms for non-users here? So, any definition of a crime or any sort of cybercrime landscape that's going to be framed should definitely look at harms on users as well as non-users. And also, it's good to question what will happen when there are AI related crimes that may happen, who will be held responsible. So, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Malvika, for outlining the issues. I'll go to Rahul first, but I'm requesting if it is okay to extend the session by another 15 to 20 minutes because we kind of got a bit extended in the middle. Hope it's okay with everyone. So Rahul, I come to you. There was a question, I would like to hear from you on what are the challenges you see in the IT Act. And also if you could revert to the questions, like we have ransomware attack, etc., which is going on, how do you prevent it?
All right. Thank you, organizers, Amrita and everyone for having me. And great to be listening to all the expert speakers so far. In the interest of time, I will keep my interventions very short. So first on ransomware, I think you need to upguard your defenses, your cybersecurity tools and technologies that you deploy, whether it is anti-malware solutions, firewalls, IPS, or any other solutions that can restrict user harm. Do not click suspicious links, do not download anything which you do not solicit. But still, there are various ways without your intervention also, spywares, malwares, even ransomware can be installed. But at least from a basic hygiene view, you do your bit and don't overexpose your threat landscape. And how do you restore it once you have hit the ransomware? And we have also seen the AIMS thing. They restored the backup, which they had not immediate, but 4 or 5 days back. In some cases, they did fresh installation and started, building things. And those lessons have to be learned. It started, if you recall, there was a wave of ransomware hitting the Indian organizations called Petya, not Petya ransomware. It started with the container corporation, the Jawaharlal Nehru port, and then it spread across the globe. It was on a weekend. Many Indian organizations got impacted, but many also sort of got their act together, isolated the systems which were ransomware infected. Some chose to pay because they did not have any backup available. They did not have any other recourse for using this. And for some, the ransomware tools, the anti-ransomware kits by nomoreransomware.org was developed and put on the site. And organizations tended to use that, and it became useful. And if you still go on the website, you will see many ransomware antidotes in form of various files are getting uploaded regularly that give you an impression on what kind of ransomware attacks that you actually see happening in these days. If you are in groups, you will see that there are multiple ransomware attacks being reported in different corporates, in different sectors, everywhere. MSMEs, like it's said that about 40 to 45% of MSMEs in India, and we have about 6 crores MSME listed. Estimates say that they have been under some form of ransomware attack. So like they have become pretty common. And, in general, cybercrime, cyber attacks have become pretty normal these days. You'll see the scamming, impersonation, everything happening. You'll get these messages on your WhatsApp messages, in your different groups, in your RWA groups, society groups, school groups, etc. So these are becoming mainstream. These are becoming normal, and it's a scary thing. The number of reported cyber crimes, as like Amrita initially noted, has significantly gone up, which is a good thing, like that these things are getting reported. But the Other thing is that what is the conversion ratio of the complaints to actual FIRs and then to the conviction? It's very insignificant, and that sort of might motivate attackers to see that okay, this is hardly an investment. You need to acquire some skill sets, jump in this, and there are mushrooming industries, cybercrime industries, who are not just conning and scamming Indians, but also global. They are running global industry, as you were saying. So it's a pretty grave situation. Some law enforcement agencies and now MHA through help of I4C has started putting together helpline, and the number of awareness modules, etc., have gone up, but it still remains largely a state subject that has to be handled with the state police and law enforcement agencies and other agencies. So I think capacity building is of utmost and vital importance, and like if we let these things normalize, I think the harms which we are already beginning to see, the impact on user rights, on how they can get right to recourse and etc. Like it's going to be impacted, and we are talking about open, safe, trusted, and accountable cyberspace, internet. To have that, to have a trusted cyberspace, you need to have user confidence that whatever they are doing online they should not be subject to attacks. They should not click any link and then malware gets installed, etc. So that cleanup has to happen. There are some efforts, but again, it's not proportionate to the kind of risks and threats that we are witnessing. And you mentioned about the lack of regulatory provisions. See, most of the cyber crimes, if law enforcement agencies want, can be covered using existing provisions. But as METI also in its presentation on the requirements on why do we need to have a Digital India Act, did note certain provisions which they thought weren't getting covered enough, like doxing, cyber stalking, cyber trolling, gaslighting. I agree. If there are explicitly written in the Amendment Act, where that would be great, so that we can have a dedicated focus and attention, and they can be easily applied. But even in absence of that, I think there should be a very robust mechanism of how a user can dial 1930, report to cybercrime.gov.in. That gets translated into or shared with the local state agencies and police officers and gets converted into FIRs, and that on that things can be followed up so that there is a proper trail record maintained. The government also tried to become, if you have lost your smartphones, you can simply log on to a portal to check. And a lot of people have actually got their smartphones back. That has been reported in the media in past few weeks. So these things help when you try and consolidate and coordinate your efforts and resources towards dealing with this menace. It needs more attention from the highest level possible, because if we don't deal with this effectively now, I think people will start getting more and more frustrated, and the trust in online cyberspace will significantly reduce. So yeah, Amrita, I will stop here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rahul. Thanks. What you are emphasizing is the enforcement of what is already there is very important.
Yes.
Actually, the implementation part is something which we lag. I'll go to first Shantanu. Shantanu, you've been speaking about the provisions, but what are the gaps you see, and what is it your wish list?
Right. So, I mean, we are looking at the Digital India Act replacing the IT Act. So, that's how I would want to look at it, because one thing I would really see is, and especially in the way we as practitioners have seen in particular cybercrime context, is that we don't have defined procedure for a lot of these things. Like the IT Act does make some procedural provisions also, for instance, saying that an officer below the rank of inspector cannot investigate, or that you need to, but there's not a lot of material on how exactly this is supposed to happen. I think the reason Malvika was also flagging that it's getting harder for certain categories of individuals to actually use this mechanism is because of how inaccessible it is. I mean, women, of course, is a key group, but also a lot of other groups. It's just extremely hard for somebody for say, even a person of an advanced age to really understand how an online portal works, or to be able to explain how that cybercrime works. So that level of sensitization, etc., like, is of course a practical issue. But I mean, if a specific team, a specific if that can be legislated into the act, that's something that I would really appreciate. And in addition, of course, in terms of the provisions themselves, of course, that what the cybercrime that existed when the IT Act was legislated versus what we are seeing today. And while, of course, we have the Indian Penal Code, other provisions, and I think again, Vijayant had mentioned that we have the RBI coming in with its own sector-specific regulation, but we're seeing a lot of new crime evolving online. So to that extent, and again, like if it's coming from a harm perspective, if it's coming from what is actually happening, and hence because it's happening online, I'm going to take cognizance under the Digital India Act, and it will be a specific offense. And to that extent, if that is something that can be envisaged from a cyber crimes perspective, that would be very, very helpful to that extent.
Thanks a lot, Shantanu. And I will go to Vijayant. Vijayant, your thoughts on this?
No, definitely. I think in terms of gaps, I think something that a lot of us have alluded to, that it would be helpful to have a lot of these new age crimes, outlined and specified and legislated into the text of the law, whatever the Digital India Act, whenever that comes out. But perhaps in terms of just generally what my thoughts are on how this whole law and the whole revamping of the framework for cybersecurity and cybercrime should move forward. I think before you get into actually what the law should say, I think it's important for the government to be a little bit more proactive about legislation and just how it's coming out with strategies and policies, because we have the National Cybersecurity Strategy. It's been 2020. It's been in the pipelines. The Digital India Act, of course, hopefully we expect to solve for some of these issues, hopefully. But again, a draft has yet to come out. There will be some time before it's implemented as law. The Personal Data Protection Bill, of course, has been since God knows when. It's been a thing that we've been looking at and working on, still not passed. So I think it's important to also say that, while we have certain expectations in terms of what is within these laws, it's also important that the government starts implementing and passing some of these legislations and policies, because they are obviously a very critical piece in enhancing the overall cyber security posture of the nation. But in terms of specifically in the context of Digital India Act, I think one thought that I have is that there should be a greater focus on cyber preparedness of different stakeholders in the ecosystem, companies, government departments, and any other stakeholders as well. Of course, we have that right now piecemeal. There are the SPDI rules that have certain obligations attached to the use of data. We have, the certain directions putting in certain obligations, and then you have a lot of sectoral regulations as well. But these are patchwork, and while they put obligations on organizations to maintain security, there are significant gaps at the legal level because there is no harmonization. And as I mentioned, there's a vacuum in many spaces, which creates vulnerability at the security level. And it's important that this particular law, the Digital India Act, outlines in a clear, principled and non-prescriptive way how organizations should go about enhancing resilience, how they should be better prepared to avoid cyber attacks. And obviously a key component of that is the harmonization of all these different existing regulations that exist right now. Another point is, in addition to harmonizing the regulatory framework as it exists today, it's also important to define clearly, and I don't know if this is a question of the Digital India Act or there's another solution to it, but I would say it's a problem that is existing in the ecosystem. But it's also important from a cybercrime perspective to kind of outline clearly what are the different roles of the bodies, that adjudicate and investigate crime, because, we have the you have the IT ministry, you have the MHA, you have police departments, you have state police departments, NCIPC for, critical information infrastructure, the Ministry of Defense. So you have a whole variety of institutions and departments and stakeholders at the government level dealing with this particular issue, because obviously it does fall within their jurisdiction, which can create issues, which makes finding a legal solution to a lot of the problems that we're talking about all the more harder. And I don't know if the solution to this is in the Digital India Act, probably not, but definitely it is something that the government should focus on, clearly resolving this issue, creating a coordination mechanism. I know there is the I4C, but perhaps there's a better solution out there to this problem as well.
Thanks, Vijayant, and thanks so much. I know you have a hard stop at 6:15. There was a question from Mr. Sanjeev Roy, and it is for all the panelists. So he was asking if operation on the dark net is illegal or trades are happening, why is it not completely shut down? So I did mention it is not possible to shut down the dark web because of its structure, but would any one of you want to take a dig on it?
Amrita, I'll just briefly mention. So, I mean, there are coordinated law enforcement agencies actions. Even look like FBI took down Alphabay, if I'm not mistaken, and plus like there are many other dark web marketplaces which are taken down by Europol, Interpol, and many other law enforcement agencies. It's about, I think they try and monitor and see on how prevalent and effective it is getting. And if it is really getting big and out of hand, then they sort of tend to take action. I really don't know the inner mechanism, but yes, they do take action. They try and close the marketplaces and arrest individuals. But usually, the perpetrators, the main kingpins who actually run them remain at large, but usually the ones who are operational aspects of running the servers and codes, etc., they are the ones getting caught. And it's very easy to replicate these things, as different nodes can come up, as Mr. Das was explaining. So action can be taken if there are if there is intention and enough coordinated resources, and if I am yet to come across something wherein the law enforcement agencies have sort of said that we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and just to add, Rahul, it's not the dark web which is bad. You have a lot of good things. There are people who, for example, in certain countries, reporters can't, send information. They do it through the dark web, etc. So it's not dark web per se which is bad, but you cannot shut down the entire dark web because the structure is such, the way it has been created. And law enforcement also likes it because they also get information of what terrorists are doing. They also get information. The messages from spies come through this, as in they also have informers. So these are channels which they would not want to close down. That is my reading. But Vijay and Shantanu or anyone or Malvika, if you want to add something to it.
I think there's just one more point, and it's something that Malvika had raised in relation to the circulation of non-consensual images. That the same issue that the law enforcement comes and tells court that I cannot take down something that is constantly being uploaded by hundreds of people at the same time, and if I take down 10, somebody will upload 10 more. That similar problem exists with, say, the dark web, with, say, torrents, other unlawful activity, because you can't stop the technology, right? As you just mentioned, the technology has a lot of positive, but to the extent something like the dark web it's decentralized. There's no one person running the dark web. There's no one person selling drugs on the dark web. So you can go arrest 5 people, 10 people, shut down 10 servers, but it's a global thing. It's even like US law enforcement, Indian law enforcement is only able to address specific instances. It's not really possible for anybody currently to shut down, let's say, all unlawful content, it's a matter of practicality and an issue that we've faced with the internet and technology for like a very long time now. So I think that's probably the answer to your question.
Yeah, Amrita, if I can add just one point on this, recently we have seen use of AI-enabled scams. We have seen use of deepfakes, but also voice impersonations, which have been used to con individuals, and there have been news reports about them. That if somebody has your voice samples for few sentences, they can literally just use that to construct everything in your voice. And that has been used in kidnapping cases wherein voices of children have been impersonated using technology to make parents believe that their children have been kidnapped. And we have already seen the use cases with deepfakes. These, with technology, these things are will definitely get more and more challenging. We will not know what to trust, and that becomes even more denting our confidence in use of certain tools and technologies. And it's not that we are going out and we are seeing the attack. The attacks are getting customized and coming to us, and we are getting targeted. So it's becoming even more scary. And that's why I said, like, if this is the time to actually deal with these things strictly. If they propagate, then it's going to be even bigger challenge.
Yeah, Malvika.
Sorry, just quickly to add, I think it's not looking at the free and open source technologies or the dark web or the internet or any other form of decentralized system that's going to come forth. What we need to look at is the corporates behind it. You can ban 100 apps and 100 more will come out. I think what we all need to do collectively is also look at the sort of business and human rights violations that are happening from social media platforms. For instance, like in the issue of viral content, more direction from a civil law perspective has to go to social media platforms to ask them to stop this or to identify that this is going to happen. And stopping different forms of technology is just not feasible in today's day and age. It's about, like, some of the things that can be worked upon are to identify these corporates, see what kind of regulations can be made there particularly, and see how you can minimize the harm as much as possible and mitigate it.
Thanks, Malavika. I would want if you want a last parting sentence, and I will start with Vijayant because he has a hard stop. As in, Vijayant, your last sentence, if you want to share something.
Absolutely. Just very, very, very quickly. I think it's important that, since the topic of the discussion focuses on cybercrime, I would say it's very important that a lot of these crimes and what they are very specifically, and obviously the harms that they create, it's a great opportunity to identify them and add them to the text of the law and develop proportional legal solutions, that benefit victims and punish the perpetrators, but also a fixed liability proportionally and correctly, because obviously when an offense is committed through the internet and on the internet, of course, there's a very varied chain of stakeholders involved. And I think that'll be one of the big challenges that the government will see with the Digital India Act, but it's mostly I see as an opportunity to come up with something that is effective and works for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you
so much. I know you have a hard stop, so I will go next to Malvika. So then I will, okay, let's go to Malvika first, then Shantanu and Rahul, and then I will hand it over to Pranami.
Yeah, so I think particularly since we're looking at it, when we're looking forward to a principles-based approach for the new laws that are coming in, I think it's really important to identify that, identify who's doing the regulation to start, what all ministries are getting involved, what all subgroups are getting involved, involving citizens, civil society participation. You have citizens group putting in their points. That is important. Thirdly, I think this is a great opportunity to look at recalling the Information Technology Act and identifying a legislation to look at different forms of crimes, emerging technologies. Although I do feel that not everything can be put under one umbrella of Digital India Act. One of the key rules of plain language drafting is that the title of the law itself should give an indication on what the law is about. I think when I see the term Digital India Act, it really points to the fact that there needs to be more clarity on the objective. There needs to be more clarity on what principles are there, how the operating provisions relate to the principles. A lot of aspects need to be thought out a lot more. And the only indication that we have, all of us have here, are 2-3 presentations that have been put out by METI and public consultations that we've been doing ourselves. So that is a great step towards sharing of information. And I think this is just the beginning, because we are looking at 3 sectors here. We're looking at data protection, digital competition, and then you have Digital India Act that covers everything else. So everything needs to sort of flow together. And I am concerned, but I'm also hopeful. So let's see how that goes. Thank you.
Thanks, Malvika. Shantanu.
I just have 3 things to say. That when we're looking at the regulation of the internet and cyber, like ultimately the objective that both the government, that the civil society, even internet users, all they're trying to see is that, you know, there's trust, there's online safety. That's also the sort of narrative that we've seen, at least across the presentations that have come through from the minister. And I mean, that's also, I mean, there's no real lack of alignment on that front. So it's ultimately just a matter of being implemented in a more structured manner. And that if you're trying, you know, if there's one legislation, then you ensure that it's broad enough to ensure that users online, that all sorts of users, I mean, individual users, enterprise users, buyers, sellers, banks, financial institutions, everybody is having a safe experience, is able to use the internet reliably, and any other new technologies that keep coming in, right? Because we're seeing the internet coming up with different ways, decentralized ledgers, all of this that we're talking about online is simultaneously, of course, leading to bad actors being able to use the internet for harmful purposes. So as long as from a legal, legislative, and of course procedural perspective, we're able to build that frame, and like it's built thoughtfully and in a manner that we can, you know, rely upon it even years in the future. Well, of course, like to have that law future proofed in some manner is what I would like to see. And I mean, I'd really, of course, like to thank CCAOI and Mita and all of you for the very interesting conversation. I had a lot of insights that I got from a lot of panelists myself. So that was very thank you.
Thanks, Shantanu. Thanks a lot for being here. And Rahul, you're the showstopper today.
Okay, so 2 things. One is making cybercrime reporting easier, making sure that law enforcement agencies have enough capacity to deal with them, and making sure that they have all the right tools, support, whatever they require to make sure that the conviction rates are higher. Like not because they have to be higher, because like we know that the conviction rate are pretty low and cyber criminals mostly are at bay. And second thing is having more forums. I know having a separate judicial courts or something for these things are like that they have been long thought through by experts, and they haven't materialized, and I'm not sure if they will. But if the kind of scale at which this is growing, it needs desperate attention to deal with it institutionally, procedurally, legally, and operationally.
Right. Thanks a lot, Rahul, and thanks Shantanu, Malvika, Vijayant, you know, for participating in this discussion. For the others here in the room, like we hope we can have more such capacity building sessions, especially for people in Assam and Northeast. And during our India School of Internet Governance, this time we will be having it in Guwahati, in IIT Guwahati at the end of September. So we will announce our fellowship soon, and we will have it circulated through Mitali and Pranami. But over to you, Pranami, if you want to thank the participants.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Amrita. And thank you for the wonderful session. Actually, from a layman's point of view, I would just like to ask, like, this whole thing is really overwhelming, the cybercrime. So from a layperson's point of view, like, I mean, I think this is something which must be addressed, and a lot is to be done to create public awareness. And this is just a small forum. I think much more these kind of forums should take place where, you know, a layperson knows like where to go, because we are not going out, but they are coming and attacking us, as has been told already. So I think these kind of forums are so important for this very reason. I think we should do much more such discussions so that we can come to a conclusion that these are the things that you can address, that these are the things that should be raised, so that something proper is done, because otherwise it's very overwhelming for a lay person, because not knowing what to do, because it is happening to everyone in every nook and corner. So for that reason, we had thought of conducting this discussion webinar today. And thank you so much. We have learned many important things today. So we really look forward to more such sessions in the near future.
Thanks, Pranami. And we would be happy to do so in case you have some students or others you would want to do.
Absolutely.
We would be happy.
Absolutely.
And I think Mr. Sanjeev Roy had a question on cryptocurrency. Rahul, do you want to quickly answer it before we go? I think
I just saw that use of cryptocurrency. I mean, what steps are being taken by the law enforcement agencies? It's to identifying the money trail. That's why the emphasis on KYCs and everything. But with cryptos, I know that it becomes difficult. You need cross-border collaboration in most of the cases to identify where the money is getting landed to and how it is getting used, and from what wallet they keep on hopping from one end and node to the another. Sometimes it is so overwhelming, the chain, that the law enforcement agencies just give up. It's not just for crypto, like if you use multiple layer of VPN and do some hops on internet and all. So to investigate, you need to have proper trail and of the flow on from where, which server, which node the information is getting processed to another. And if there are multiple using different geographies, law enforcement agencies just try and give up and say, okay, we have other better things to do. But this needs to be addressed at global level, because it's a global problem. It's no more a local problem. Everyone is getting impacted through this. Yeah, it needs more attention. That's all I can say. But, the experts from law enforcement agencies can actually better answer on how they are actually dealing with this on a daily basis.
Thank you, Rahul. And thank you everyone for participating in this discussion. And yes, I think we would be concluding it now, unless and until Pranami or Mitali, you have anything more. I'm stopping the recording.
Yeah, thank you